Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on the AM edition of Newsfeed. There are calls to support learners in public schools to cope with the mental health problems as schools are in recess. Our learners find themselves in a different learning environment as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many will require a catch-up plan to cover the 2020 year. Experts say the unprecedented changes, the uncertainty and anxiety caused by the pandemic may worsen existing mental health problems. Now, joining us now is Kristal Duncan-Williams, project leader at Youth Capital. Kristal, a very good morning to you. Thank you for your time. We are seeing more and more how COVID-19 has shown the impact of a digital divide, so to speak, on learners' ability to learn. When it comes to learners, public school learners, having to go through their work at this time, are they able to learn when they're not in school?
Good morning, Mpho. It's been our experience that the learners at this time have really struggled to continue learning for the majority of learners across South Africa. The inequalities that existed before in the resource abilities of schools to provide material, the data constraints, the connectivity issues, access to devices on which to learn, all of these issues existed before COVID-19. What the lockdown and pandemic has really done is to exacerbate these problems and to really show how those learners who were behind before and were struggling before are in an even worse position now. Whereas learners with access to data, devices, schools that are more resourced to provide these things, these learners we know have continued to learn during lockdown, and therefore the gap between those learners and the ones who were behind before has grown ever larger. And we are just worried with this increase in school closures and without a clear plan from the DBE to help learners to catch up. We will see stark contrasts in dropout, as well as learners falling behind, especially those learners in matric who are hoping to go on to post-school studies. All of these challenges will just be made worse with the lockdown.
Enable a learner's ability, what are those factors that need to be considered during this time?
So we know that in South Africa, a lot of learners struggle to read for meaning, and literacy is an issue, and the foundations of those things are already lacking. Now that learners are having to learn by themselves at home, we can only imagine that they're struggling even more. In order for learners to really have continued learning in this time, material should have been provided clearly. Opportunities to engage with teachers and tutors online would have helped learners, but we know that this is not the reality. What we're saying is there needs to be a clear catch-up plan strategy from the Department of Basic Education for learners who are progressed to the next grade, as well as learners that are flagged to be falling behind, so that they can get the additional support, the one-on-one attention, all the things that they need in order to continue learning and to catch up. We know that the school year is going to be drastically affected by COVID-19, but we could still use this as an opportunity to see what content is really necessary for learners, for them to be able to cope in the next grade, and to really surround them with that academic support. And then additionally, as you mentioned, the mental health burden, I think, hasn't been spoken about a lot. We know from a study with UNICEF that 1 in 5 young people between the ages of 18 and 35 say that after lockdown they would like access to a counselor for advice. So we know that the mental health challenges are huge that young people are facing. Younger learners also are struggling because they don't understand what is going on. And so we need to think about how do we also give learners psychosocial support in these very difficult times.
As you speak about the importance of psychosocial support, you also have mentioned here that it's highly imperative for learners during the next 4 weeks as you explore some of the factors that may come with the mental health support that's very much needed. What are the concerning elements that parents should be looking out for at home to ensure that they find the means of accessing these mental support mechanisms?
We know in South Africa that access to mental health support is challenging. And we know that SADAG and those organizations do exist, but the need is great, and there's a lot of stigma around it. So I think what parents can do is just talk to their children, have open conversations, ask them how they're doing, ask them what they're struggling with, if they miss their friends. I think a lot of kids are really struggling with not being able to socialize. I think that's a huge part of especially younger children's development. So I think parents should just create space to have those conversations with their children, and that their children feel comfortable to speak about the issues and the anxieties that they might be feeling and facing.
Thank you so much for your time. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Kristal Duncan-Williams, project lead at Youth Capital, speaking to some of the many pressing concerns around the catch-up plan and the mental health support of learners during this unprecedented time. Let's turn to the Western Cape, where police have reinforced